We got YouTube's darkest videos, number 7. Let's see what it's talking about. If this video good, I might go back and watch the other ones.
It's December 4th,
Whoa.
2003.
I'm gonna go try to get them to stop doing that.
A police officer walking in a local park in Arlington, Virginia, is approached by a concerned family, claiming that someone in a nearby neighborhood had been shooting off a flare gun. The officer could hear it too, and following the sound, he eventually found himself at the home of 56-year-old James Yu. The man lived alone in his half of this duplex, and was described by neighbors as a recluse known to exhibit unusual behavior. Across his social media, he made posts claiming that he was the victim of fraud at the hands of all sorts of government agencies, as he had a deep distrust of the US government as well as law enforcement, and he believed that numerous people were attempting to kill him,
that nigga
like his
bugging out on
ex-wife,
LinkedIn.
the
Nigga said
FBI,
potato
and even his
face.
neighbors. His posts
Yo,
seemed
folks
entirely
bugging out on
nonsensical,
LinkedIn.
and so did many of his actions. In the months prior, he had covered up all of his
They got
windows
an
with
oval.
garbage bags and aluminum foil, and he even wrapped his trees in toilet paper. And though these actions
The
are entirely
fuck?
harmless, on this day, things were becoming far more troubling.
That nigga's a tweaker.
When police arrived at his home, Yu would be seen firing his flare gun out of his window and into the air, over and over again, and despite repeated attempts to get him to stop,
Arlington County Police! Stop shooting the flares! Mr. Yu!
He shot that bitch
he
again.
didn't let up, shooting 41 flares in the span of just 25 minutes. And he did it all with
That
no
nigga tweaking.
explanation. In fact, he didn't even say a single word. Understandably, police were eager to get Yu out of his home for questioning, as at this point it wasn't obvious whether or not he was a threat. And so for hours and hours they called out to him, first asking and then demanding that he exit his home.
James, Arlington Police, under the
He
front
shooting
door.
flares. That mean he need help. Nigga breaking that bitch.
We have your building surrounded.
But still, there was no response. Growing impatient and worried that Yu might be planning something, the police would eventually bring in a specialized vehicle to bust down the door and spray the inside of the home with gas, all in an attempt to draw Yu outside.
James, stay away from your front door. Stay away from your front door, James.
Damn.
And in response, Yu began firing once again. Only this time, he wasn't using flares.
You're lying.
And
Oh, no, that
instead,
nigga got
he was
that
now
Mac
wielding
out.
an actual gun.
Hold on.
Thankfully, none of these shots connected, but with the situation becoming increasingly dangerous, the officers decided to fall back, as they carefully came up with a new plan for apprehending Yu. Though whatever they had been planning would never come to fruition.
Yeah.
He deleted his build. No. He blew the whole bitch up. Nigga, what the fuck? Yo.
In a split second, the home
I'm
was
not gonna lie,
gone
that's crazy.
as a massive explosion rang out from inside the house, reducing the entire structure to rubble. Inside the house, Yu had stored
Nigga, you see how the
55
house
gallons of
folded?
gasoline in his basement, which he saved for that moment to ignite with no warning and no explanation. Based on the footage, it's been theorized that Yu's actions were an attempt to lure police into his home so that he could then set off this explosion and take them all out along with his neighbors,
Oh,
as
that
he
nigga was
genuinely
crazy.
believed that both parties were conspiring to kill him. Though somehow, when the smoke cleared,
Twitter loved their comments. Oh, I ain't never seen this. I'm not gonna
no
lie, this shit
civilians
kinda
or
crazy.
police officers had so much as been injured. All that was
RIP,
found
bro,
in the
that nigga
rubble
was going through something.
was the remnants of a single body. Though for a moment, this wasn't the end of James Yu's story.
So he basically only deleted
Before
his
that
own
body
build.
could be identified, reports across social media began emerging
That's the best
showing
way it
that
could've
James
went.
Yu
RIP though.
was somehow still alive. After the blast, comments were being made on what appeared to be Yu's YouTube channel, where he stated that this whole thing was a cover-up and that he wasn't even inside the home when the standoff started, which looking back, we never actually see him, and we also never hear his voice. Numerous posts pointing out this development would go viral and cause mass confusion about the story, which was only heightened when it was revealed that the body inside that building was in fact James Yu. Though in the end, it wasn't really as mysterious as some originally thought. As it turns out, the post showing these comments failed to realize that this wasn't actually Yu's account, and instead it had a completely different username, with the account likely having been created as nothing more than a hoax. To this day though, there are some that still believe that this was all some sort of massive cover-up. But in reality, it just seems that this was the result of a man gripped by crippling paranoia and loneliness, with it all coming to a head in what has gone on to become
R.I.P. James.
one of YouTube's darkest videos.
Nigga blew the whole crib up. I ain't never seen no shit like that. What the fuck? Come on, bro.
The internet is a dark and disturbing frontier. This year alone, countless people have fallen victim to high-profile data breaches, raising serious concern about—
Nice try, fuck nigga. What the fuck? Man, that shit
there was really
tough.
nothing else like it. This obscure 27,000 square foot structure allowed visitors to enter into what must have felt like another dimension. It was an exhibit called Dream Space, and was the creation of British artist Maurice Agus, a 74-year-old artistic visionary obsessed with the idea of creating large-scale surreal environments, and this was his magnum opus. The structure was inflatable, akin to a massive bounce house, and once inside, guests were confronted with a labyrinth of brightly colored walls and cells, twisting and turning into some sort of surreal maze that patrons were told to lose themselves in. This piece of art premiered back in 2004, and due to its inflatability, it was actually built to travel, making stops in major cities in the UK before it was eventually set up at Riverside Park in Durham on the 22nd of June, 2006. The very next day, 68-year-old Elizabeth Collings would visit the area with her husband and her daughter, as well as her 14-year-old grandson. And spotting this unusual structure in the distance with her husband and her daughter, as well as her 14-year-old grandson. Elizabeth's grandson insisted on checking it out, excitedly taking off his shoes and running inside. And while the rest of the group was more apprehensive about entering, Elizabeth eventually decided to accompany him, leaving her husband and daughter on the outside, though not before turning back to them and joking that she was going in to find peace and serenity. Outside, Elizabeth's husband and daughter sat at a nearby table and enjoyed a cup of tea whilst conversing about the events of the week, only for the man to turn his head and notice that Dream Space was slightly moving, to which he excitedly said, "Oh, it's a ride, it's a ride. I wish I had gone on it." The daughter then turned her head to see the structure as it began to rise up off the ground, to which she chillingly responded, "It's not a ride."
Oh, hell no. That's like being in a bouncy house times 10 and that shit get lifted off the... What the fuck? Oh my god.
In that moment, Dream Space had snapped from its moorings and was blown into the air by a massive gust of wind. Agus just so happened to be standing at the entrance as it began to shift, and noticing what was happening, he grabbed on as he desperately tried to hold down his entire life's work, though clearly this was of no use. And after being lifted in the air, his grip failed, sending him falling back to the ground below, where he lay staring up at his creation that was now flying 30 feet above him.
That shit could probably kill everybody in there. Nigga said Mexican kid. Hell no.
Inside, there were as many as 30 people who were now being thrashed around this giant inflatable structure in a scene that I truly can't even imagine.
The only way you might stay alive is if you're like directly in the middle and you're getting actually no, that's the worst spot to be. If you were all the way on the side of one of these sides, you might stay alive. You might, nigga. That's the crazy part.
Phobia of it, the dizzying colors, the screams. It's genuinely one of the most
using that yellow piece is possible.
Heard. The inflatable structure was airborne
Looks
for
like
well
fun,
over a
yeah, you
minute,
trolling,
folding into
boy.
itself
Stop
before
being
finally
edgy.
crashing back down into a parking
was in
lot,
that bitch, you
leaving
get your
behind
neck
what was
tossed
described
around,
by
boy. That shit
witnesses
crack.
as a field of bodies. Worst of all, the majority of those in attendance were families with small children, with one 7-year-old girl recounting her experience, saying,
Nigga,
"It was
tripping.
very scary and people were screaming. I saw a lady clinging on and then falling out, and then she was lying on her back with people around her. I think she died." This lady was most likely 68-year-old Elizabeth Collings, who had been ejected from the structure when it was in the air, with her injuries being catastrophic and unsurvivable.
Ooh! That's the worst. RIP, that's the worst way to go. You get pushed out the shit while it's in the air, nigga. How does that... Man, RIP, bro.
Of all the others now sprawled throughout this field of grass, most were left injured but thankfully not in serious condition, though this wasn't the case for 38-year-old Claire Fromage, who had been inside during the accident with her 2 children, and despite her kids surviving, she was sadly not so lucky, with Claire and Elizabeth being the sole fatalities of the incident.
Hey, that's...
The video is
crazy,
terrifying,
but that's not as bad as
and
I
though it's
thought it
easy to
was
say
gonna
that
be.
this
But
could have been
RIP
so
them.
much worse, considering how many people were in dream space at the time, the
saying.
consequences were still catastrophic, as it devastated 2 families, and likely left many others at the scene traumatized for life, especially the young children. But how could this have happened? Well, that day was particularly warm, which likely caused the air inside the structure to expand, causing a hot air balloon-like effect, which was then exacerbated by sudden strong gusts of wind, which eventually caused the structure to go airborne, as in the end, it just wasn't properly secured for the conditions. Soon after the incident, Maurice Agus was arrested for manslaughter, though he would ultimately only end up paying a small fine, as he vowed to never create a large work again. Just a few years later, in 2009, Maurice Agus would pass away, with his legacy forever being defined by this devastating footage.
It's crazy.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Serena.
What the fuck?
On October 2nd, 2006, police entered the home of 31-year-old Elaine Campione, where inside they found the woman speaking incoherently. Next to her was a VHS camera, depicting a series of disturbing events that had transpired within the home over the previous months and days, with the footage eventually finding its way onto YouTube.
Nigga, what?
Hi, Serena. It's August 8th, 2006. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
The tape starts with Elaine pointing her new camera at her daughter Serena. It was her 3rd birthday, and to celebrate, Elaine had left a brand new bike in the living room.
Yo, these type of cameras, like when it's in a house setting, these shits are kind of scary, bro. I don't know why. Like this VHS type footage, when it's in a house setting, something about that shit is unsettling, bro. It can't just be me that thinks that.
What is it?
Hey, she got a bite.
Days later, the footage continues, showing Serena once again as Elaine asks,
How does Mama love you?
This much.
Oh, I love you more than that. How much does Mama love you?
Elaine then shows her other daughter Sophia, who was just a baby, before turning the camera on herself and showing the kids how the device worked.
Hi. See how the camcorder works? Look.
Yeah, it's the farmers.
Look. Hi. Is that Mommy? Hi.
Yo, babies is funny, bro.
So far, the footage seems like nothing more than your standard family home videotape, and appears completely wholesome. Though with the next recording, the tone begins to shift, and things start to become slightly concerning.
This is a deplorable, horrible, messy, filthy apartment that supposedly my 2 children and I live in, and it's just a horrible, horrible mess. Yeah. I think Diego Campione is totally in the wrong, and I hope he burns in hell for all his sins, the same as Leonardo.
Whoa.
As Elaine shows the camera her home, she begins joking about how they are
And
living
the
in
baby
deplorable
dads?
conditions, before randomly calling out 2 men who she says she hopes burn in hell, all while her children are in the same room. She starts to grow more and more agitated.
All I wanted to do was take care of my 2 little girls and live happily ever after the 3 years of physical, emotional, and mental abuse that I endured tremendously by
As you
Leonardo
gay.
Campione, and then the past year from Anna and Diego Campione, the mental and emotional abuse.
Outright saying that she was abused by a man named Leonard Campione, who happened to be her ex-husband and the father of these children. And she goes on from there, with each moment clearly making the kids more and more anxious.
And I want justice to my my family for what they have all done to us. I cried out for help. They should have charged him for the assaults he did to me.
Eventually causing Elaine to snap out of it and stop the camera.
And my poor 3-year-old.
I don't like where this is going, bro.
And what are you saying, Sophia? What do you want?
The video then skips forward once more, with this footage being taken just days before the police were called, showing Serena coloring on the floor as Elaine asks,
Who loves ya?
Mom.
Who loves you the most? That much? Oh, I think I love you more than that.
The scene that unfolds next was recorded on that very same night, just hours later.
Recording this because Leo there, are you happy? Everything's gone. You wouldn't,
Bro.
you wouldn't tell the truth. You didn't care about our babies. You didn't care about me. You care about yourself. All you did was hurt us.
In the video, Elaine states that everything is gone, as she speaks to Leo directly, accusing him of having ruined their lives with his constant abuse.
You are truly the devil. And I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
She did what I think she did,
I want
bro.
you to know how much I hate you.
Disturbingly, the
lie.
children were nowhere to be seen in this footage, with Elaine
She's
eventually
rotten
addressing
in
them by
hell. I
saying,
don't give a fuck.
God believes me. And God's taking care of them now. They're protected by God. Thank God. And thank Him. Because
Bro, this story finna get me hot, bro. I'm going to the next one, bro. Story finna get me hot, bro. Story finna get me hot, bro. Gavin Collins, bro.
On April 18,
That nigga like a
2010,
demon.
a 39-year-old man named Gavin Collins was released from the HMP Ranby prison in the UK. His freedom would last less than 24 hours, as the very next day he suffered a severe mental breakdown, the result of which was captured partially across several video recordings that later appeared on YouTube. This is the story of his rampage. It began at approximately 9 a.m. in the city of Nottinghamshire when Gavin left his home. As he walked down the sidewalk, those in the area reported him acting strangely, muttering to himself that he was Jesus and that he was invincible. Without warning, he then turned his attention to a random home, which he forcefully entered, stole a man's car keys, and took his vehicle, taking off with no apparent destination. Inside the car, the owner just so happened to have two cameras, one being a standard dash cam and the other facing inside the vehicle, giving us a look at Gavin and his apparent mental state.
This is me. Jesus Christ! I'll shut you up with a eyesight.
That nigga look like a... Yo, he looked like one of them, what is it? The engineer niggas off of the Alien, bro. He look freaky, bro. I'm gonna give it a buck. Where are his eyebrows and where is his hair, bro? You should have just been able to tell he was going manic by him not having eyebrows, gang. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Come on, let's go, bro. Talk, get rid of all the crap hairs. Let's go! Let's go!
Just at a glance, it's obvious that Gavin is completely unhinged. For some reason, he was utterly filled with rage, ripping off the rearview mirror and yelling obscenities and incomprehensible threats at no one in particular.
That nigga tripping.
I'm enraged! I'm Jesus! I'm descendant of God! And you lock me up! Watch this! You...
And most concerning of all is the speed in which he's traveling, as he starts driving faster and faster, swerving in and out of cars as he passes through busy residential areas, as he reaches speeds that have been estimated to be anywhere from 85 miles an hour to well over 120.
Watch this now! I'm getting stronger and stronger by the second!
But somehow, despite countless close calls, every time he avoids collision, at least for the time being.
That crack give you superpowers. He finna smack.
In an instant, Gavin smashes the vehicle into a brick home at full speed, with the impact being devastating. And yet somehow through the destruction, Gavin was not only still alive, but completely unharmed, and also completely unfazed. He pulled himself from the wreckage and immediately turned his attention to a woman driving nearby, and within moments he had forced his way into the vehicle and was behind the wheel once again, continuing this deranged driving spree until once again he crashed.
Yo, this nigga
and much like the initial collision, he survived, walking away unscathed before turning his attention to another random home.
I'm not gonna lie, this might be crazy to say, but I can see why he felt like he was, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You heard what he said. He said, I'm Jesus. He said that, bro. And nigga, if I'm coming out of 2 crashes untouched, I'm gonna feel like I'm something. Not him, not Jesus, but I'm gonna feel like I'm something. Shit.
In pursuit of stealing his third vehicle, he grabbed a nearby concrete slab and
Nigga
began
on
to
some
smash
demon
through
shit.
the
This
home's
the devil,
doors,
nigga.
bloodying his hand in the process, before eventually making entry. Inside were a mother and her 2 children, one of which was 5 years old, and the other wasn't even a year. Gavin approached the terrified family, yelling and demanding that the mother give up her car keys, telling her that he was Jesus and that, "Because I am Jesus, I will kill you if you don't give me the keys." And without hesitation, she did as he said. Gavin then went to each member of the family, and with his injured hand, he drew crosses on their forehead, out of his own blood, before taking off with his third stolen car.
Oh, I thought he was gonna kill the legit. That shit was about to piss me off again, bro.
Once again, Gavin was driving manically, though this time he was even more reckless, crashing into a brick wall and then a cop car, before setting his sights on a pedestrian. While speeding through a neighborhood, Gavin would see a man standing innocently near a bus stop, and for whatever reason, the sight of this man enraged him, causing Gavin to slam on the brakes and reverse the vehicle, stepping on the gas as hard as he could, and crashing directly into him, leaving him lying there with devastating injuries.
Yeah, this nigga's sick,
Gavin quickly
bro.
exited the vehicle and found the man lying motionless on the ground, prompting him to shout, "I've killed him. I've killed the devil." Minutes later, Gavin would crash yet another car into yet another home, though this time the police weren't far behind.
Hey, for now.
This way. I'll get him out. I'll get him out. Oh no! Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Do not move! Do not move! Get him up! Get him out. Get him down.
Finally bringing his disturbed driving spree to an end. The man that Gavin had struck was 87-year-old Terry Radford, a retired teacher whose injuries were catastrophic, with the man passing away soon after. According to his family, Terry was an incredible grandfather, father, and son.
Man, niggas just
The footage is genuinely horrifying, but what's
This
most
nigga
shocking
look
of all is the
retarded, bro.
fact that any of this was even allowed
like
to
a
happen.
demon.
As stated previously, this was Gavin's very first day out of prison, and based on the behavior he exhibited whilst in prison, he really should have never been released. Gavin was granted an early release in March of 2019 for charges based around burglary, but just as he was set to be freed, it was discovered that he had
YouTube's darkest videos.
submitted an adulterated drug test, which caused his case to be re-examined
I got
and
this shit
resulted in his
crazy.
release being postponed. In response, Gavin lost his mind. Later that month, he assaulted a prison guard before spraying him with an unknown liquid that contained bleach, before proceeding to set his cell on fire and attacking another officer with a piece of wood. Due to his actions, Gavin was placed into an isolated cell, where less than a week later he started yet another fire, and when an officer entered his cell to put it out, Gavin struck them in the head and pulled out a plastic knife, threatening to slash him, stating that it would be a thrill to kill
Bro,
him.
is that a mosquito in my room,
Gavin's
bro?
stay in prison clearly hadn't rehabilitated him. In fact, it seemed to have made him more violent than ever before, and more mentally disturbed. Though shockingly, despite all of these additional crimes, Colin's release would go on to be approved less than 2
This nigga's
weeks
fucking
later,
loony. Why'd they
with
let this
Gavin
nigga
being
out?
set free on April 18th. And within just 24 hours, Terry Radford would be brutally killed.
I'm saying, bro, nigga got out
Gavin
and
was sentenced
instantly...
to 21 years
Whoa,
in
that
prison,
nigga looks
and during his
crazy.
trial it was revealed that no drugs were found in his system. And instead, this all seemed to be the result of some sort of psychotic episode that just so happened to be captured on camera in one of YouTube's darkest videos.
I ain't gonna lie, that nigga was a demon. That nigga came out of jail and instantly started playing GTA, nigga. Nigga stole 3 cars and ran a nigga over at a bus station. Like, what the fuck?